Have you ever seen a movie that felt like it was made specifically for you? For me, that movie was Wolfwalkers, but Zootopia came pretty close. It's really had it all. Great characters, great animation, great action scenes, solid jokes, and a captivating world that was just begging for further exploration. It had its problems, of course. While I think the film offered a refreshingly nuanced take on the theme of prejudice, it didn't explore that take beyond a surface level. Stereotypes are played straight for laughs just as often as they're subverted. The villain reveal had basically zero build-up and kind of felt like an ass pull so the movie could have a happy ending despite not actually resolving the underlying conflict. The film can also get cloyingly, or should I say clawingly, proud of itself at times, and I'd give an organ to not have to listen to Shakira open her god-awful song the movie won't stop shoving everywhere it can. But despite those issues, I still can't help but love it. And I'm obviously not the only one, since Zootopia went on to become the most successful Disney animation film not called Frozen. So what happened to it? Tangled got a series, Big Hero 6 got 2, Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen both got sequels. Heck, it'd be easier to list the movies that didn't get a follow-up of some kind. And yet Zootopia, critical and commercial super hit, whose very premise practically begs to be expanded on, goes 4 years with nary a peep. No word on a sequel, or a series, not even an IDW comic. That is, until 2020 when they finally announced a Disney Plus series, with almost zero fanfare. And on top of that, it was going to be an anthology of shorts about side characters. Well, 2 years after that announcement, and 7 years after the film's release, Zootopia Plus is finally here. So how was it?
Disappointed!
So right off the bat, the very structure of the show feels weird. As I said earlier, it's an anthology series, which on its face seems like a good enough idea. After all, Zootopia's biggest draw was Zootopia itself, and while I, and probably most people, would have preferred to experience more of this world through Nick and Judy, an anthology does present its own advantages, like the ability to tell any stories involving any characters without needing to contrive a way to rope in the film's leads, or maybe take a more slice-of-life approach instead of needing to adhere to a strict buddy cop format. Problem is, that's not what Zootopia Plus does. Each episode focuses on a different supporting character from the film, and they run in parallel with the movie. This is a strange way of structuring a show. Normally, in an anthology, you want there to be some common element tying the different stories together, whether that be shared themes, MacGuffins, or a framing device of some kind. But in the case of Zootopia Plus, that common link is Zootopia. And by that I mean the film, not the setting. Every episode can be summed up as what character X was doing before, during, or after a specific scene in the movie. Not only does this result in the show having zero identity of its own, it turns out to be so dependent that it expects you to have the movie fresh in your mind, as if it were intended to be watched at the same time or right after. Watching it on its own, even with a strong memory of the film, feels incredibly disjointed. There's nothing thematically or narratively tying Duke the Musical to the real rodents of Little Rodentia, except that Musical takes place after Duke gets busted by Judy, which happened after his rampage through Little Rodentia that almost got Frou Frou killed, which in turn happened after Judy took the train to Zootopia. Honestly, these feel more like DVD extras or those promos Nickelodeon used to do more than an actual show. But then I suppose it was never really advertised as anything other than a collection of shorts, so how did the shorts themselves stand? Very mixed. The first short, Hop on Board, is okay, I guess? That's really all I can say about it. It's not particularly funny or well choreographed, but it moves at a brisk pace, and I guess that's enough to keep Disney's target demo entertained. Honestly, the only thing that really stood out to me was the number of weird continuity errors the short introduces. Like, in the movie, Zootopia is this far-off place Judy's never been to, but in the short, it's like, what, 5 miles? I mean, Bonnie and Stu literally drive there without any time jumps, and Molly somehow doesn't reach Judy before the train arrives, even though that's literally why she snuck on. But alright, it's cartoon action logic in a 10-minute short. Don't overthink it so much. But then And yeah, sure, I'm nitpicking, but it's not like I had much else to think about. Thankfully, I found the real rodents of Little Rodentia much more enjoyable. What can I say, little rodents being catty bitches is just inherently funny. And also a really weird sentence when you think about it. It's also the only short that actually makes good use of its connection to the movie, as we see how nearly getting crushed by the giant donut causes Frou Frou to have an emotional epiphany and reconcile with her cousin. Rather than being an empty callback, it actually recontextualizes the scene it's referencing, and fleshes out Frou Frou as a character.
That's good.
Unfortunately, it also creates a number of massive, gaping plot holes.
That's bad.
The episode ends with the characters inhaling night howlers and going savage. The first issue with this is that this scene happens at the end of Frou Frou's wedding as she's tossing the bouquet, except Nick and Judy were present at the reception and everyone was acting completely normal. I mean, I get that it's a mafia family, but you'd think Frou Frou would be a bit upset about something like that. Not to mention, it's Mr. Big who tells Nick and Judy about Emmett Otterton going savage. You'd think he would have mentioned the same thing happening to the bridesmaids. For that matter, Emmett was Mr. Big's florist, so you'd think he'd be able to put two and two together, right? Also, the movie implies the flowers have to be eaten or processed into a serum in order to induce the psychotropic effects. If just smelling them is enough, then A, why does no one know about this? And B, why are they being sold in bouquet form at all? And before you say I'm overanalyzing this, I'll remind you that these shorts are intended to be watched with the film fresh in your mind, so there's really no excuse for oversights like this. I mean, if they're willing to be so flippant with continuity for the sake of a gag, then why are the shorts tied so closely to scenes from the movie in the first place? I mean, at least Lion King 1.5 was upfront about being a pseudo-canonical parody. But anyway, this segment's gone on long enough. I'd better move on before Patrick Willems comes to punch me in the face. I don't really have anything to say about Duke the Musical. It's fine. The song is fine. The humor is fine. The song's visuals are the only thing that really stand out, and even then, they're just fine. I don't know. I just feel like this character would have worked better in something like a Looney Tunes or Ed, Edd n Eddy type format. The next short though, Godfather of the Bride, is easily one of the best, and for once I can say that without any caveats. It's got a great visual style, great action, great comedy, and a fun little rags to riches story for Mr. Big that expands on both his character and Zootopia's history. Hell, I don't even care that it's sort of implying Mr. Big is over 100, which I guess is technically a plot hole because Nick met his grandmother, which would have made her like 200 something when she died. I don't know, maybe they're all Highlanders. I don't care, I'm just happy to have something genuinely good. But alas, we now have to talk about So You Think You Can Prance, easily the worst of the bunch. I don't know who in their right mind thought the world needed 10 straight minutes of Clawhauser squealing, but I don't want to meet them. Ever. There really isn't much else to say about it. The plot's non-existent, there's only one joke, and the whole thing turns out to be a dream anyway. It's really just an excuse to have Bogo and Clawhauser dance. And can I just say that that dance was the most disappointing thing I've seen since the Callisto Protocol's review scores? When this show came out, I was seeing screenshots of this scene all over Twitter. I was expecting a veritable feast of fabulosity. But no. There's no catchy music, no elaborate choreography, they just swoop and spin with no rhythm over some generic runway beats. Like, why wasn't this the musical? I'm genuinely baffled as to why this is the series' poster episode. It's like they made an entire short just to queerbait furries on social media, but somehow couldn't manage to make it actually entertaining. But at least they don't play try everything, so small favors, I guess. And last, but certainly not least, is Dinner Rush, which thankfully turned out to be another winner. Unlike the other shorts, this one stars an original character, an otter waitress named Sam, who is adorable by the way, and it's mostly a self-contained story that isn't overly reliant on callbacks to the film. It does feature Flash and Priscilla, but they're put in a completely different context, so the humor is derived from the inherent comedicness of the characters themselves, and not the audience's memory of the DMV scene, which is a pretentious way of saying it's a nice bit of situational comedy. And speaking of comedy, this is probably probably the funniest of the bunch, and sure, that's mostly because it's a rehash of the movie's best gag, but like I said, a simple change of scenery can make all the difference. This one joke toward the end completely caught me off guard and got a genuine laugh out of me, even though in retrospect I should have seen it coming, which is probably the best compliment you can give to a joke. All in all, it's a great short, and definitely closed things out on a high note. In the end though, I'd have to say Zootopia Plus as a whole was a massive disappointment. Even putting aside how it wasn't what anyone actually wanted from a follow-up, taken on its own, it still falls short. It's overly reliant on the plot of the movie to the point that it can't be watched independently, but at the same time, it's willing to completely disregard continuity for the sake of a joke or a callback. Yet most of these jokes and callbacks are aggressively mid, with only 2 of the shorts actually doing anything substantial with the material. Honestly, the best thing I can say about Zootopia Plus is that the animation quality is incredible, probably on par with the film. Not to mention they got all the original voice actors back too. This show must have been ludicrously expensive and labor intensive to create, which makes it all the more baffling that it feels like such an undercooked afterthought. It just feels like a waste. I would gladly have accepted TV quality animation and a non-celebrity voice cast if it meant we could have got something more substantial than Blu-ray extras, even if it did still use the Anthology formula. But alas, what's done is done, and instead we're left with a disappointing miniseries that's 80% forgettable blandness broken up by 2 great episodes that ultimately just make the disappointment worse by reminding us what could have been. That's why my final score for Zootopia Plus is the Book of Boba Fett out of 10. Honestly, I feel like the show would have been way more enjoyable if they'd given it its own running subplot instead of relying on the movie. It certainly wouldn't fix everything, but at least then it would have its own identity, and I think that's what matters most for any spinoff. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the Rambling Rune Pony, and I'll see you in the next one. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future content. If you'd like to support what I do, consider donating to my Ko-fi. It's like Patreon, but better. Link in the description. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.